There's a particular kind of change no one really prepares you for. The changes in life that is usually, I guess, uninvited. That's not about the change that you actually planned, like many of us who are planners. It's not the change that you typically work towards either. These unplanned changes that just sort of show up and end up rearranging your life just out of the blue, ultimately, it is because a restructuring is happening that you didn't ask for. That may be a leadership shift that you didn't anticipate. It may even be a personal life disruption that forces you to question everything and anything. Now, moments like these do not just mess with your routines. They actually shake your identity. They shake your trust and even, I have to admit, your confidence. And ultimately, to be brutally honest, they even make the strongest of leaders, like myself, feel a little bit unsteady when it occurs. Now, this conversation is really about disruption, uncertainty, and how to find your footing when the ground unexpectedly just shifts beneath you. This conversation today is for anyone who's navigating a professional or personal change that they themselves didn't choose, but they are still required to show up, to lead, and to just keep moving. We often talk about change as humans and individuals like it's something neutral or even something exciting. But the truth is, when change occurs, especially if you didn't choose it, it really feels different. It can feel a bit abrupt and even unfair. Sometimes it can have you feeling a bit disorienting. These types of unchosen changes, they often come with very quiet loss. I can share from personal experience that I have had to experience this a few times, both in my professional life and in my personal life. Story time. I must say, from a personal standpoint, there were relationships in my life that shifted in a way that I didn't fully choose, whether it be a family member, friends, or maybe someone that was just an acquaintance. Now, in those instances, in those experiences that I had, we, the person involved, we both actually contributed to the ending, but it felt like something that was happening to me, as much as it was something that I decided consciously. There was this sense of discomfort because I felt like I was losing that familiarity. There was also the grief of what I thought it would be and ultimately turned out that it was not, and just needing to accept that. For me, I had to do what I call an internal audit, asking myself questions like, where did I show up? Or where did I not show up? Right? How did I contribute to this demise of this particular relationship or change? Ultimately, I had to just gain some humility in realizing that growth doesn't always preserve connections. Now, on the other hand, from a professional standpoint, I have had a lot of moments in my career when, from an organizational standpoint, there were shifts that were happening around me. And some of these shifts, they completely altered my role, the role that I had at that particular organization overnight. Decisions were made at a level that was above me. And whether I agreed with them or not, I had to really operate within them. Most times, my role didn't disappear, but it changed. Most times, my influence didn't vanish. It was just a little different. The work and expectations, they changed, and no one even asked how it landed for me. Did they even care? Probably some did. Ultimately, though, I just had to handle it. Typically, how did I handle it? I would show up. I smiled through it. I adapted to whatever was happening and told myself, this is just part of leadership. But the real truth is, deep inside, I was really grieving the version of my work and myself that I knew will no longer exist. During those moments, though, throughout my career, the emotional response that I had was one of frustration, was one of disappointment, and maybe even one that had to do with the ego that I had at that time. I was tempted, being who I am, to prove myself harder, maybe even withdraw, or maybe even resist this change that was happening. I had to fight those urges, though, and do the deep work on myself, for myself. And that was to really separate my identity from whatever the title was or whatever this new structure was or is. In the end, the shift for me was really deciding whether I was going to anchor myself in whatever changed or in who I am as a person, regardless of what changed. So, one of the hardest parts, though, of disruption is realizing how little control we actually have over whatever the outcome is. The plans that we had dissolved, and the future, it feels a bit blurry because the certainty that existed, all of a sudden, it just disappears. Now, as a leader, we're used to creating structure, but when that uncertainty hits, it can really feel a bit like feeling like a failure. And I have to say, hindsight is 2020. What I had to realize is that it's not failure. Now, my experiences have taught me that uncertainty isn't something to solve. It's actually something that we as individuals need to move through. Resisting it or pretending that it doesn't exist only makes things worse, because whatever the weight is that you're carrying, it ultimately just gets heavier.